Just 2 pages there? You need one more. One more, please. One more, Lisa. Bless you.
There we go.
Thank you. That's terrible.
Go ahead.
And you can't hear it either.
Tom, can you hear Bobby's command? Bobby, can you hear me? Tom?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Bobby.
Okay.
But we can't hear Tom, guys. I don't think he hears you either. Reschedule.
Tony, I'll call in on his cell
Okay.
and let him know what's going on.
Yeah, they seem to have dropped the connection.
It didn't matter, Don. It didn't matter that I turned this off, yeah.
No, I think they dropped the phone connection. That's it. You turned off the video portion, audio is to the telephone.
Right.
Oh, pretty soon they're gonna say, I'm sorry, we have to close the meeting. That's funny. And they're not gonna be able to testimony.
So Greg is the Greg Masuda.
Hang on, I'm trying to put him in.
I think he got caught in the middle.
Can you see him?
Yeah, I can see the screen perfectly fine.
All right, I'm going to
I
back
think he
over.
got caught in the middle. Yeah, that's the best question with that.
Okay, we're live. Are you there? We are here in Hilo, Puna room, and Bobby's on his way up from the chamber, so I've got a one-way conference call between Puna and the mayor's office in West Hawaii. Thank you. Okay, got it.
All right, so David, where were we? Right now we're at the Kalu Forest Reserve, talking about the Kalu Forest Reserve Access Project. What that involves is an agreement with the private landowner to go up this public access way that's on the land, that's under lease, cross over onto the private land, come up here to the Forest Reserve boundary, run across the bottom of the Forest Reserve boundary, private land onto another state pasture an access agreement with this private landowner, which has been finalized, that the language in the agreement is okay. And then we submit that to the land board for the land board to approve the documentation of the access agreement. As it stands right now, is a 20-year access agreement. That's what the landowner wants to try it out, see how it works, and go with that. As soon as that's done, the fence material has been ordered and may even be on the way here now. So that all of this fencing and whatever, road building and everything can go forward. All the material has been bought. I think the folks in Kau are putting together the labor force through, a combination of efforts with Department of Land and Natural Resources, Nature Conservancy, hunters, who else? A few other parties that can all contribute labor, equipment, and all that to get it done. So that's kind of what has been called phase one. And then phase two is basically just finalizing the agreement with this lessee to realign the fence at the bottom here. So it would take a little bit out just at the top of the pasture lease area, and probably we're going to have to survey that fence line to keep land division happy. So when they write that lease, they know that they can say, and the lease goes up to this, instead of the lease going all the way up to the state property boundary, the lease will go up to the fence line, which will be built slightly on the inside. And the material for that is part of the order, same thing. So it's basically just getting those two aspects of the paperwork done, one with the landowner and the land board, and one with our own land division and the land board. And then that can all get done. So the survey on that fence line, I kind of together the work order and all of that and get it done. Okay. If you're starting to go with the first phase of the as soon as the ink is dry, yeah, then they can go out there and move on to the next part. Yeah. And that's just a couple of other views of it, but if that's a little view of the same thing, going up through here and all the way across to there. The current access is the blue line that you have there? Yeah. Well, the current access is either up this way, right, up to the gorge and the waterfall, or up this way, up Mountain House Road, but you can't go all the way because there's the water supply gate up there. Yeah, so the idea is to have a here all along the bottom of the forest with a lot of other points to go up. There's a couple of like old roads that go up through here that may or may not be passable, but so that one I think is moving along as long as we get the landowner to sign off on the agreement.
There's something to this.
Any questions over there in Hilo, Tony?
That's one of the questions that we wanted.
Yeah, I have one. This is Tony. I still yet. We talked about it in our July meeting. That I guess the July 2nd meeting from Na'alahele. And I'll read what they have. They had an issue regarding hunting access to the Hilo Forest Reserve near Akako Falls. Was mentioned under council members' concerns. Apparently, the developer is working with DOFAR and the county to provide public hunting access and parking as part of the subdivision plan. I thought this was a good thing. We might already be involved. We weren't. And if not, this might be of interest. And then I have the tax map key. And talking with the county, they didn't know anything about it. I was wondering if anybody at DOFAR knows anything about it.
Probably should know about it because they were not here.
Yeah, we talked about
Yeah,
that
Ron
earlier,
Bachman.
you guys.
Exactly.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. Maybe you guys didn't hear us on our end, but yeah, I was informed about that from Na'alahele. I made inquiries to the county about it. I haven't heard anything back. So DOFA is aware of it, and we're watching the subdivision process. However, you know, that is a county process, whatever the planning department and the planning commission is going to do. That's their process. It's not our process. So we're available to pitch in and help and talk about what's going on at the Forest Reserve. And I think DOFA in the past has expressed a willingness to be able to help with creating and maintaining whatever access ways are required by the county through that process. But, you know, as terms of what happens during the subdivision, that's the county process, and we can be there to help out, but we don't drive the process.
Thank you.
I think we should ask for information on that. Yeah, I think.
Yes, that's getting the information about this one we're talking about. Clement at the Hilo office. I think we showed that before. We've got the.
Hang on, guys, we got a couple questions coming out of Kona. You probably can't hear them. It's regarding Akaka Falls.
Yeah, this is the tax map plat of that. Would be it is 2810. And there's a whole number of different parcels. Which one is it? Two, yeah. Section 8. Plat 10, I believe.
Down in front.
I don't have all that information yet. I sent an inquiry to the county planning department and I haven't received a reply.
Do you know how many lots? Do you know how many lots you're subdividing into?
I believe on the ordinance it has to be 6 or more in order for the access requirement to kick in. Yeah.
Yes, Tony.
Bobby, we need the help from your department. Thank you.
Okay.
Tell them to put us on the moving slip for this WD.
Everybody has to speak up.
Yes, I can get the information for that. But I'm not exactly sure. There's, it's less than 6 lots. If there's less than 6 lots, there's no requirement to provide public access. We still might be able to negotiate it, but there's no requirement.
Okay, so Bobby's on this one.
We still want to be informed of what's going on. Because if they don't give us access, then I think we should make noise about it.
Bobby, how do we get involved in this issue with planning, who from the county is doing this?
It would have to be Larry Brown, and it would have to be a subdivision that's already taking place.
Can we be kept abreast of this though? I mean, I keep hearing Larry Brown's name, but we're not in the loop on anything.
Yes, you can. I can find out about that.
Thank you.
That's the road.
So does it encompass all these parcels? Do you know?
The road is already there,
Yeah.
but it's the last parcel. If whatever's going on here at the end against the Forest Reserve boundary, that's what the issue is. Right along there.
Does it include all these parcels? No.
I don't know.
The road is right here. This part that they're looking for.
Okay, next. Okay, next one on the handout is the Keamoku area, dealing with Kohakuloa training area and the military for some sort of longer-term agreement. I understand that there is hunting in there now on a irregular basis, depending on what the military wants to do. And that's another area that I have the background information from Jordan on it, but we haven't gone forward with any of that. So if anybody has any input on that, I'd be happy to take it.
Buffalo is thinking about hiring a game warden type person, a new care type person, and also a game manager. We didn't have a chance to really get into that with them today, but that's one of the plans that they have for the future. And so I have a question for Lisa regarding some of that too, as we get on this evening.
Okay, and then the other areas in North Hilo Hamakua side that had previously been work done. Here is one of the maps from Jordan that shows some of the priority areas, which included, I think, Kaibiki and Chinchuk, Kamae'e, and also the Kaupakuea. So I'm going to talk about Chinchuk and Kaibiki haven't really gotten to yet. The other two we've become more familiar with, and I can give you an update on those. So this is the Kaupakuea subdivision map. It shows the access that was acquired by the county. The access goes up through this subdivision, but does not touch the forest reserve. See over here where it says Hilo Forest Reserve? That's property owned by finance factors. So what we determined, and I met with the branch on about this on Friday, I think the idea is to sort of have this down here, this will be staked out, right, either by the county or by us, or whatever we have to do to get it done and get it surveyed and get it marked out, because it's not marked out on the ground yet. And then, so from a parking area here, walk up. But what I have to do, and if anybody can help me with that, talk to finance factors and talk about getting just one little footpath that so here's the access way. This is what the county acquired through that subdivision they were out there in the field with Jordan. And then so here's the forest reserve, here's finance factors, and the corner is just right there. So we need just a little pathway that goes across finance factors. Okay, this is the one. Earlier, Jordan had got approval to get that thing open, with the county. Today, surveyor and stuff like that.
What you are supposed to check on?
Already at this point, right? Because it's pretty much low hanging fruit. The only thing is, I think you would need to get that corner there first. Proceed, because otherwise, it's all this time. Yeah. Let me know.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Sorry?
I don't, but I can dig it up for you later. I have the tax maps in my computer, but it'd take a little time to dig for it right now. Okay, and then the next one, going backwards, was the Kamae'e Road, which is this one here. And although if you see this, goes up into Hilo Forest Reserve, 1,500 acres or so. The blue line is where Jordan guys drove when they did this field survey. The orange line is where the Homestead Road is lined out on the map. And apparently the Homestead Road ends right about here, even though it was originally laid out to go all the way up through here to the Forest Reserve. But there are, in these lots here, basically there's lock gates right here where the blue line is. And there are existing private access ways that go through these parcels for their own private access. So if we want to continue to pursue this one, either see if we can negotiate agreements with these landowners to use their existing roadways that they hold privately, or to see if it's feasible to actually make, this is just a road on paper right now, right? But it was laid out, it should be within the state's rights to make that road within that right of way, if it's doable. And, you know, whether what the ground looks like there, and whether it could actually be done, or whether it's just a line that somebody drew on the map because there had to be a road there, that's what we're up against at this point. Yeah. So that would be, depending on the willingness of the landowners, it might be easy, but if not, then it would be a longer term process. Get that all done.
I have a question. This is Ike.
Go ahead, Ike.
As it relates to these old, what they call government roads, and they were to access the old homesteads. Isn't there? I would like to get clarification on what the responsibilities or obligations of the state or county are to these properties. Because my understanding of the Homestead Act is that access to the homesteads would be provided by, you know, whatever governmental institution is in power at that point. Now,
Mike, this is Bobby Command.
yeah, I know, Bobby. We had this conversation
Right.
before, and you know, we have asked this question a number of times.
And I've given you the same answer over and over, right? The
Wow.
county and the state don't claim roads in limbo.
But then who's responsible to the homesteaders who have property rights? And then as it relates to the, you know, I hate to be going back, but as it relates to the area, what was that area you talked about? Kill, the one of Cody.
About 50 hillside.
Yeah. What's the name of that?
Yeah.
Kalpakuya.
Yeah.
Yeah, we asked, you know, we asked you, Bobby, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but we asked you to follow up on the letter to the mayor that we had drafted. And so, you know, I thought that letter had been.
Well, let's back up a little bit. The project originally was to survey the road, to find the center line, and then to work on some sort of deal with Jordan at the time to go ahead and, I guess, clear the road or not, well, just at least make a trail or something like that. That was pretty much set up. Jordan left, and the surveyor wasn't going to wait. And so now what we have to do is either schedule another time when the surveyor can do it, or find some funds in order to survey it ourselves.
My recollection was that the GMAC had drafted this letter to the mayor, asking the mayor for help and assistance on this matter. And so,
right, and like I
we
said,
wanted a disposition on that.
The offer is still open, but we have one surveyor in the county. And there's a long waiting list on that. We might be able to move up on the list depending on a number of things, but we need to coordinate that first.
I think
go ahead and do it, but then if we're not ready to do it, we're going to.
Yeah, Bobby.
So I can work with David to figure out some time or some window of time where we can go ahead and try and reschedule that.
I think it is in order, Bobby, for you or the mayor to let the GMAC know about that, because a letter was sent from the GMAC to the mayor. And, we're kind of waiting on a response on that.
Okay,
So perhaps if you can ask the mayor or whoever to draft a letter that, officially tells us what's going to happen, that
Okay.
might help us. Thank you.
One more thing on that property. So now this access portion that we're talking about, the road ends, and someone's lot. I thought it was a lady. She provided a footpath access through that property. That's not Finance Factors. Finance Factors is up at the very corner, right along the State Forest Reserve property. So you're saying now that we have to get access to Finance Factor, that corner there?
Yeah, can you guys see the map?
No, not really.
Okay. Yeah.
I've been there. I walked all the way up over there, and I've been to the forest in that area.
Right.
Overlap. Finance Factors doesn't come all the way down to I think it's Santos property on the corner there. There wasn't open.
so look at it this way. There's a T or four corners. The trail goes up to the lower right hand part of the T, but doesn't meet the upper left hand part of the T, which is where we want to get. There's how much space is that between the?
Well, in a way, it doesn't matter because there,
Yeah.
we're just going to right. The property over which the easement was granted only touches the forest reserve at that one corner point. Yeah,
There's four corners.
yeah.
So, I mean, if this is accurate, then anybody that walks up that easement has got to step on Finance Factors land to get into the forest reserve.
Or Santos.
Or Santos land. So, we need to either talk to Santos, but the easement
So
doesn't
we
touch
wanted a
Santos.
survey.
Yes.
So, I mean, we got to talk to Finance Factors. I mean, if you're a lawyer looking at this, we're in trouble.
That's why we wanted it surveyed, though. See, if we had it surveyed to that point, we would actually know exactly, and then we could move forward with going to Finance Factors.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Excellent point. Yeah.
And that's what we requested.
Tony, what I would say is that you would need a memorandum of understanding or a memorandum of agreement with Finance Factors saying that they will work with us in order to make this happen. Otherwise, if they say no, then it makes no sense to survey this because we will not be able to access the property.
The description of the easement does read about touching the forest reserve boundary, right? The words, but when you map out the meets and bounds, it comes out differently. So if it actually did touch Santos that corner, then maybe.
Okay, thank you.
So somebody who is in the official capacity of the county, could they follow up? Somebody in your operation, Bobby?
But did Tom say he was gonna talk to?
I'll talk to finance tomorrow.
It's a memorandum of understanding saying that they'll work with us to provide some sort of access to the state reserve. If they're willing to do that, then the rest
I'll get the tax map and I'll take it from the
Okay. So Tom will make the initial contact.
Go on phone in the morning.
You guys okay? Any more questions? We move on.
Yeah, moving on.
Moving on, we talked about Cottonwood Forest Reserve, at least the current phases of that. Next thing on the list was Kikuka Idaho license agreement with Department of Hawaiian Homelands. That has been found by me, the current agreement language, and I discussed it with the Attorney General. So we're now in the process of deciding how to respond to the language that Hawaiian Home sent us and respond back to them. And
What was the term of that lease that you guys were looking at? It used to be 20 years.
yeah, 20 years. Yeah.
So,
and expired 2 years ago, right?
so what's happening now? So, in terms of the state leasing to Pugana, is it month to month?
That's what I understand, yeah.
So right now we're on month to month lease with the HHL.
Month to month, revocable permit or whatever.
Got it.
I'm not sure exactly what the vehicle is called.
So
It's month to month, and it appears to be working as far as being able to continue hunting in there. But we don't want it to go on like that for.
Right. So it's an at risk. It's at risk. Right?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, GHHL at the end of the month can say, we're done.
Yeah.
Right? And on a 20-year lease, that's a little harder to do.
Right. So that's the objective, is to slow that down again.
But they get that finalized.
I think it more depends on Hawaiian Homes than on us. I mean, it's something that we want, and something that the board approved, but then it still also has to be approved by Hawaiian Homes Commission and their side, so.
But there is a contract right now in front of them.
I have a question. This is Ike again.
Go ahead, Dave. I mean,
Okay,
fire away.
as it relates to that people buying a whole license agreement, the statement is that they're revising a standard license agreement received from DHHL.
Yes.
So what is the revision that is being contemplated, or can you tell us?
Well, the proposed agreement that Hawaiian Homes sent to us was in the form of the agreements that they make with private parties. So there's terminology in there about indemnification and liability that typically the state doesn't enter into that when we enter into agreement. So that's the challenge right now, is to make it into the form of a government to government agreement rather than a government and private party agreement.
And
That was the template that we received.
And just for clarification, and I think somebody asked this question, but I did not get the answer. Are you guys looking for a longer term lease?
No, we want to.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, just go on. I get one. Same thing with the you guys working on this one? How about the access to the forest also?
Well,
The original for this renewal, was the contract saying? Was it? Was it went to now? Is it something that has to be on? The work is good. Right.
yeah, right. So to me, the old agreement looked pretty good, but once the attorneys got a hold of it, then I got back something different. So that's, yes.
So the initial one, the agreement was.
Well, that was an agreement that Hawaiian Homes made with us 20 years ago. And apparently things have changed since then. I mean, there has been some controversy about how Hawaiian Homes manages their land and does their leasing and so on. So, that's all I can say about it for right now. I looked at the old agreement. Looks like it would be great if we could use that, but that's something that we still have to have more discussion about with Hawaiian Homes.
Okay, Tom, can we move forward with this? We're going to be running out of time, and we have to do these, so yeah, Chase.
That's correct, I got it. Okay.
Okay, so there was two more items on my handout. One was about meetings with Kamehameha schools, the meeting for the Hilo Hamakua side on Kamehameha schools that Jordan had tried to set up never happened. So that's still something for me to get back into. Nothing else to report on that. And then on the other Hawaii County projects that are listed there, that's kind of going to tie up for the wildlife program on different brands for different kinds of acquisitions. The one that seems to be the most interesting from a hunting perspective is the Kuka'iao Ranch. And so that's an acquisition that has been funded from a variety of sources. It's still in negotiation with the landowner to see whether we'll be able to close the deal or not.
All right. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Like, go ahead and move forward. Yeah, that's fine. I don't have a point to is Lisa there?
Hi, Tom.
Hey, Lisa, thank you. I have basically one major question for you, and that is the status of our game rules and regulations that have been out there since 2008.
Okay, so I assume this is kind of item number 2 on the discussion item.
Yeah, it's a little bit out of order there, but yes.
Okay, so at this point, the rules have been through the AG's office. They had some questions to staff. Staff has reviewed them. And the plan at this point is to get back in touch with all of the people that submitted comments and have their contact information. We're going to email them the version that we have. We're also going to post it on the website for the month of September, as Scott Fretz had indicated we would big. And then ideally we take them to the first board meeting in October.
October. All right. And is it liable to be approved in October?
Pardon?
Is it liable to be approved by October?
You know, it's going to be before the board for a vote. It'll be a board submittal from our division.
Okay. Now, you said those that submitted comments, you're going to be sending questions on those comments back to those that submitted comments?
What we're going to be doing is, as I understand it, there's a really large contact list, and that entire contact list will get either the link to where the rules are posted. So we just wanted to be sure that we weren't just putting it on the website, but that we were actually trying to contact the people that had submitted comments with their contact information. Be helping facilitate that, as David mentioned, the Marie Morin, who had started the program manager in January 2014, resigned. And so we're covering this with existing staff. And we're looking forward to the new game biologist in the admin office coming in at the beginning of October.
Okay, one last question from me anyway. If this thing gets approved by the board, let's say in October or November, how is this going to affect the current hunting rules that we have right now as far as tag fees, stamp fees, license fees, and what have you?
Right. You know, that's a really good question, Tom, and I'm going to have to make sure that I know what it means, whether it will mean that from that date forward, from the approval process, when the tag fees and those kinds of things will go into place. And I'll look into that answer for you. I don't have it right now to give you correction.
I appreciate that. And one last thing. If any animals were released from Oahu, would they be available to be moved into or pushed into Waterloo?
If you're familiar with the situation we had when we moved some animals in,
Yeah, that was great.
when was that? About a year and a. At this point, it would take more planning, etc., to get that all in order.
Okay. Well, I don't want to take up this meeting for that, but would it be possible to get together with you sometime and talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have anything for Lisa?
Oh, any of you guys got anything for Lisa? No. Yeah.
Okay. Lisa, thank you. At this time, I'd like to introduce 4 other of our guests that we have here from the police department. We have Captain Miriam. We have a community policing officer, I believe his name is Officer Pat Moore, from Hamakua, and Lieutenant Maluna. We have 2 questions, and our Vice President having trespass, and what can we do in trespassing and poaching, and what have you, and I know many of us also have questions that we have, so I'm going to open this up to Captain Miriam and the other officers that are there, if they have any opening statements or anything they'd like to contribute about trespassing and how they can contact them.
This is Captain Miriam. I would take each case as it stands, one by one. You know, if there's particular things that folks are worried about, whatever district you live in or whatever district this concern is taking place with, go ahead and give us a call. You can always call dispatch, and they can have an officer respond. It's not always going to be, you know, the captain or the lieutenant or the CP, community police officer responding. But you know, if it's something that requires a little bit more research or thought into it, you know, definitely, you know, we'll get involved somehow, or we'll assign somebody to make sure that it's, you know, whatever concerns you folks have, get satisfied. I'm not sure what specific issues you folks are concerned about. I don't know how you folks are as far as time, but I think the best thing is, you know, if you folks have you know, things that you're curious about, you know, let us know on a case-by-case basis, one-on-one. We can address that. You know, we'd be glad to answer questions. But that's basically what I have. I don't know if we can, or do we have anything? But I think that's how we all look at it. You know, it's hard to cover blanket things sometimes. It's good to be able to sit down with folks and find out, okay, what are the specifics as far as what has happened, what's going on. Is this something we have jurisdiction on? Is this something we have to get other people involved in?
Thank you. This is Willie Joe. I guess I've been having a couple of the ranchers and other private property owners approach me, and I had one a couple weeks ago come over and just ask. I guess there's some confusion, I guess you can say, of what can be done to these people if, you know, if they are caught in private properties. You know, it's kind of the notion that it's just a slap on the wrist and a $25 trespass fine, and you know, especially for the ranchers. I mean, you know, a wean calf, you know, they're close to $1,000 for a wean calf right now, and you know, it's not really a concern about these guys catching a pig per se. It's the worry that the dogs might get a calf and everything, and that's close to $1,000 out of this guy's pocket. And they're concern is that, you know, they'll lose out $1,000, but even if they kept the guys, so I guess the question is, so for that, is it adult care obligation? Is it county police obligation? That's basically what the questions that I've been receiving have been coming from.
We also have James Miller here, but we can address that as far as county side. You know, if it's private property or if it's something, you know, a leased property that you have the right to, then how we'd address it is whatever crime that basically can be proven, which trespass is usually the easiest one. You know, what we look at, I guess, as policemen is, you know, making the most effective criminal case that we can. You know, we can say, okay, you know, this guy was on here to, you know, to take one of my cats. You know, something happened. You know, we have to be able to prove that, or, you know, the evidence that we gather has to prove that. So, you know, obviously trespassing is easy where that's where we start. But if there's more information that we gather through investigation, you know, we'll run with that. If it turns out to be something as far as theft-wise of agricultural products, then definitely, you know, we'll pursue that. You know, but that's with private landowners. I don't know, you know, what DLNR has, but you know, we try and work together. If it's not something in our jurisdiction, you know, we'll reach out to them. You know, myself and Officer Pascal were talking a little while ago about you know, things happening in Waipio Valley. You know, obviously we have more personnel spread out around the island, so we're going to be usually the first point of contact. But if it involves something with DLNR, then at least we can reach out to them and, you know, work together somehow. But yeah, I understand what you mean. Trespass is a very, it's either a violation or a petty misdemeanor, which is basically, you know, no jail time, essentially, or if any, you know, just very small amount. But we have to go with what we can prove. So the best thing, I think, is, you know, if people are on the land, you know, we've issued that trespass notices if, you know, if the landowner is uncomfortable with them. But hopefully, you know, I don't know where the group is right now, but, you know, my thing is trying to work together. You know, I hear you guys talking about access and things like that. You know, and I understand the ranchers' concerns as far as, hey, you know, they got a lot of money tied up in there. That's their business. That's their livelihood. And somebody going through, the potential of, you know, them costing them money is a concern. But, you know, on the hunter side, hey, they want to be able to get, have access. So the best thing I think is, you know, if they can kind of communicate, get together with the landowners and, you know, come to some kind of meeting of the mind, some kind of agreement. And, you know, that's something that, you know, doesn't necessarily involve the police, but, you know, that communication is important because, you know, the hunters, folks who hunt want to be out there. They want to do that. I understand that. The landowners want to, you know, protect their privacy and their property rights.
Right.
Excuse me, sir. This is Tom Lodge. Does property have to be posted, no trespassing, for this to stick, basically?
Yes, it does make it a more effective case, and the statute, I think, for certain trespass does require that. For some, requires the fence to be up. For some, it requires signage. So yes, it's always better to have that.
Very good. No, thank you. The other question on the detainment, Mark?
So this is Mark. Let's say you're at 6,000 feet on Monroe, right, and you've got leased property, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15,000 acres from Kamehameha schools, and access up there is difficult, to say the least, right?
Yes.
And you have poaching problems, right? You've got people who are climbing fences, entering illegally, and shooting whatever they want to shoot. I mean, now I'm just trying to be realistic, right? So, I mean, if I called police, one, it's going to take me 4 hours to get out there. I mean, so what do I do about something like that?
Okay, this is one of the things I alluded to at the beginning of the meeting. It's probably better if that's you, an actual situation, and you're that property owner you're talking about, then you come and you sit down with whatever, district police office is going to be responding, and you figure out something. You sit down and give us a call. We can talk. We can make some suggestions. Obviously, a lot of us have cell phones. That's a good. Alone out there, you don't know what's going to happen. You've got to use your best judgment. And there's a number of factors that go into that. So I would say the best thing is to sit down, talk with whatever, like I said, district office is closest, and maybe, folks can go up, take a look, and they can make some suggestions for you as far as specifics, and I would go from there.
Citizens arrest.
Well,
I
understand, and our biggest thing is protection of life, property. Well, that goes further down the scale. So if something happens and you're saying, well, I was protecting my property and I used deadly force, that's probably going to put you in a worse position than the person who was trespassing on your land. So again, that's something that I would sit down. There's not a black and white, but you need to understand a little bit more about the law and be comfortable with that, and knowing that, hey, I understand you're frustrated, people taking things, but that doesn't add up to deadly force. And what you're talking about with packing and things like that, those situations can quickly get out of hand, and that's not what we want to see. So that's something, like I said, it's better as a one-on-one sitting down, or versus having this in a large meeting, because a lot of what ifs can come out of this. And it's
so
just,
what if I put up cameras and caught the guys?
okay, that's good. That's one of the suggestions that would probably be made. And you folks can look at what kind of pathways, where to place things, and just kind of go trial and error. But again, that's working with the police in that area. See what you get. But that's an excellent idea. I talked about the cell phone. You're not always going to be there. And we've had people who have posted those hunting cameras. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But yeah, that's one of the things that we do recommend.
I have a question. This is Tony. What happens if that animal is a pet? We're only talking about game animals, but I had a pet pig back in 2000, and I had people come on my property and shoot it, and we had 2 eyewitnesses, and it still wasn't enough. And for me, it was more that it was a pet. It was a wild pig, but I had a small pig, and it was a family pet. And so, to me, that's a little more connection to just going out there and somebody killing a wild animal or whatever.
Yeah, and
they got treated like it was just a wild animal. So nothing that came with it.
And to that circumstance, I would have to look at what, whatever happened with that. But, we'll investigate, and whatever can be proven. Again, we look.
Well, and they discharged the firearm in a residential community.
Yeah.
So I thought they would at least gone
like
after that, and
yeah.
Police didn't do that. They went to the sergeant, and the sergeant said you don't want to proceed.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't stop that. Let that stop you from calling. That's to me, that's one of the things I'd like to emphasize here is that if you folks have concerns, at least let us let us know. Give us a call. Dispatch if it's an emergency, 911, and we'll respond. If you folks are not satisfied with that, then you can always obviously the sergeant was contacted in your case. I can't speak to that specifically because I don't know the background of that, but it seems like you have a good point. Discharging a firearm in a residential area is a crime, but again, it depends how far the nearest house is, things like that. So, but please, if I can leave you with something. I hate to have people, store things up and it's like, the police didn't do anything, or, like your experience. It's like, don't let that stop you from calling and asking for assistance and, finding out, hey, what are my options here? What can I do? And, we're available 24/7. We're out there, and that's our job. And, we're not always going to satisfy folks. I know that already. But, we will try. And you do have a recourse. You can ask, if you're not satisfied with maybe what the officer told you, hey, just politely ask, is there a number I can contact your supervisor at? There may not be one on duty at that time, but, we will give you folks a call back and let you know. And like I said, we try our best to at least, do what we can, and we're bound by the laws, but we'll try to help you understand as far as, hey, this is why we didn't do this. It's not a problem asking a question, hey, what's going on with this? Again, it's not always like TV, but it doesn't hurt to ask, hey, is there something you can do? Things like you talked about cameras. Those are things that, we want to, use what resources we have, but sometimes we're restricted by certain things in certain situations.
Captain, this is Bobby Command. One very quick question. Correct me if I'm wrong, but only the owner or his agent can swear out a complaint regarding trespassing on property.
Yeah, that can't be handed over to the police. A lot of people say, call us and say, hey, go serve this guy a trespass notice. What our function is at that point is to stand by to make sure, I basically say that things don't get out of hand. But yes, the property owner or the person who has right to that property has to be the one to actually say, hey, you are no longer welcome on this property, or to say to the police, yes, I do want to make a formal complaint. And, at that point, we can do, we'll continue on with the investigation. But yes, it can't be the police. It has to be the property owner stepping forward.
So if you're a leasee, then you have that right.
Yes, and if you have the authority for that property, yes, you do have the right to do that.
So a general question. I mean, how many calls are you guys taking about poachers? I mean, is it a 0.1%, or is it 5%, or is it? I mean.
I really can't answer that in Hamakua. I'm the Hamakua and North Hilo District Captain. And we have Lieutenant Mohuna. I don't know if Jody wants to address that, but, from my experience, I don't get day-to-day calls. So it's really not that much, but let me hand that over to Jody.
Jody Passmore. I've been CP for 1 year and 3 months in Hamakua District. I've had 1 call in 1 year and 3 months. Poachers. It was after the fact. People didn't know who cut the fence. They assumed they came in and hunted. I worked with Bill Stormont a lot with American Forest Management. When we see vehicles on their property, we don't know if they're hunting or not. When he calls in, we send a trespass. He sends a trespass notice via mail by the registered owner. We have received very few calls in the last 1 year and 3 months since I've been out there. I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm just saying we have received very few calls. So if we don't know what's happening, we can't do anything about it.
Right, and this is Willie Joe again, and I guess that's why I asked to have you guys come. It's just to, I guess, reiterate that, because the thought process with a lot of the owners is that nothing's going to happen, so why even call? So I mean that's a good part of why we had you guys come out tonight, and thank you for coming and explaining that. Hopefully we can get that message out to more people.
Get you more calls.
Yeah, get you more calls.
And that's not a problem. I understand what you mean. It's like some places it's like 4 hours, but that's where I would get take the initiative, sit down with the contact whatever district your place lies in, and talk to the office there, whether it's the captain, lieutenant, whatever, the CP officer, so that they know, hey, here's what the problems are, and let's try this. Maybe not so you don't have to call every day, but at least that hey, it's being documented somehow, and something is being done. So, like I said, if it's in that remote kind of area, then I would suggest reaching out to us first and, having a sit down and trying to come up with some ideas.
So we have a doe care officer in Hilo as well, correct?
Yeah, Dave Brewer.
I mean, so the same question for that individual. I believe his name is James. Yeah. I mean, is doe care getting a lot of calls on poaching? Or any calls on poaching?
The Division of Conservation and Resources Enforcement does not respond to calls of trespassing on private land.
So
Our main focus is on state land.
State land.
The Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Got it. Understood. Thank you very much.
Do you guys have a list of contacts for each station or something, so that people don't have to call 911 just to get a meeting or
Sorry,
something
I
like
missed
that?
most of that. I'm sorry.
Station numbers.
Say, if you call the station, you're very unsuccessful unless it's during business hours. Your best bet is, if it's not an emergency, is to call the 935-3311. They'll connect you with Central Dispatch, and they'll put you in touch with the right person. Whatever district it is, it's just island-wide, the 935-3311 number. Obviously, if it's an emergency, call 911. But
See, this is gone. I want to add to that. It's on my side. What it is the hunters are getting frustrated because they're getting blamed for something that is actually not them. They actually work with the renters, but it's like if the renters catch rustlers, just totally straight out for the cattle, right? Then it becomes a retaliation, and then the hunters get blamed for it, whether it's cut off fence. And it's not the one they're doing on our hand. It's literally not.
Clarification. A hunter is somebody who has legally vultures.
But that's what I mean. But every time when we can clarify, we look at hunters as a broad perspective. So we deem the unfit person, and that's what we have to actually shine on light that there is a difference when you say hunter.
well, and we, like the captain said earlier, we take it by case basis. I don't say any hunter's bad. I don't say any rancher's bad. We just go out case by case basis, and whatever it falls, wherever the chips fall, that's what we deal with on that particular day.
Yeah. So it's like we try to work hand in hand with the renters because it's not the cattle, it's just the overall expense of preparing everything that gets done to the renters. And we getting fed up as hunters that work with the renters that these ones that are not educated or licensed or what have you, these are broad, the broad part of what's going on right here, and that's why we're going to.
And that's why the captain said the landowners need to come to us and sit down with us, because a lot of times people are going onto their property during full moon every time, or the rustlers, illegal poachers, whatever it may be. And if we can set a timeline, then we can set something up. That particular officer that's working in that district can set something up, so maybe we can catch this person. But if we don't know about it, or it's not being reported, then there's really nothing we can do about it.
You're right. There's some hunters, then there are the poachers that come by, and that gives you guys a bad name. And one of the things that I want to see, if a calf costs $1,000, let's raise when hunter get caught, when poacher get caught, raise them up $2,000 or something on first fine. And if he get caught second time, raise them up $2,500.
Okay, hold on.
This
hold
cannot
on,
go on
hold on.
already.
Yeah. I don't want this to turn into a free-for-all, yeah? So when we call your name, hopefully we get into the public testimony pretty soon, then you can make statements. Right now is the time for the board members to ask questions of the officers.
One more from Kona. One more for doe care. So recognize that private land is off the plate, right? It's public land. How many cases per year of poaching does doe care prosecute?
If you give me a name and number, I'll call you back. I'm not prepared for that, but we have a lot.
A lot. Yeah, yeah.
On state land.
On state land poaching.
We catch poachers, no hunting license, for firearms in no firearm area, such a lot of what we do.
James, Tom Lodge. I have a question on that. You know, in the wildlife revolving fund, it talks about money that's supposed to be coming in for penalties and fees and stuff like this from goat care, I'm assuming, anyway, on the wildlife revolving fund. Do you know when these, because I was in court one day when the judge gave this guy a $10 fine for a minimum $25 fee, or fine that he was supposed to have had, $10 to go to class. Do you know if that's happening a lot?
Tom, this is Lisa. I can look into the wildlife revolving income, but I don't believe fines and fees are very significant at all. And then they're actually also, I believe, potentially subject. We have to, any income we have to give 20% to OHA as well. So I'll look into that income, but I don't think it's very substantial, but I just know that.
Yeah, well, no, it was zero last year. That's why the reason why I asked.
Okay, it's gone. I have just one more question. So now, if DLNR is not responsible, right, for like private land, roads and stuff. So say if it's a county road that leads into a destined property that leads to a state forest reserve. So who actually has the authorization? You or you?
If it's a county road?
Yeah, subdivision is considered a county road.
Being that we're the primary police department for the island, we basically have jurisdiction wherever. When it gets to state land, if we're called, okay, there's active hunting going on right now, we have to respond. But if it's something that's ongoing, then we try to pass, if it's on state land, we try to pass it off to them because we have a lot to take care of. Like I said, we're the primary police department.
So that's why you guys.
Yeah.
We're not a 24-hour agency, so like what he's saying is true. If you called at 11 o'clock tonight with a poaching problem, there's no dog care officer on. So you call.
You'll call us and we'll
respond.
respond.
Happens, they'll respond, then they'll give us a call in the morning. And then we'll get together and say what we're going to do. An example could be like when Kulani Prison was up and running. Guys would go and trespass into Kulani Prison. So we used to wait on our land where they parked their vehicle. And when they came out over the berm to the vehicle, then we could inspect them because now they're in the forest reserve, hunting license, to check in, watershed permit or whatever it was. At that time, we could sign up for the hunting permit, but we couldn't do the trespassing. So the landowner, Kulani Prison, needed to make a complaint with the police department on the trespassing. Then if they shot pigs or they did any type of criminal property damage while they were on the Kulani Prison property, they would file criminal property damage with the police department, like any private landowner.
So again, it has to be the landowner.
Yeah.
In order to make their call.
They can make it like, let's say let's say there's you own 40 acres, your neighbor owns 40 acres.
Mm-hmm.
Your neighbors tells you, hey, I've been seeing trespassers, I want to leave. I'm going to town or I'm going to be away on vacation, whatever, and you see them on there. There's nothing to say you can't call us. And we can go make contact with the people. We can get, and if they're on the land at that time, we can get their name, we can get all the information. And then when the landowner comes back, we can follow up with the case. It's not to say that you can't call. It's just we can't prosecute without the landowner. You have every right to call us to go make contact with the people. We just can't arrest them right then. We can't do anything like that unless we see a major violation, felon with firearms, whatever it may be. It's not to say that you can't call. It's just that we got to contact the landowner before we can make a trespassing violation.
I have one question for Bill Karen, James. At the very, you see somebody poaching in Kipuka, let's say, Kipuka, Idaho, or any state land. What is the very least that you would need in order to open up an investigation as far as information on that? Say you may know who the individual is, but you don't have his vehicle number or whatever. What would be the very least you would need in order to prosecute?
Vehicle license plate number, location of where the vehicle is parked, color of the vehicle, type of vehicle, day, time, whatever was observed, that would help us a lot. Because if it was a car parked on the road, Kipuka during the open hunting day, then the chances of us sending someone up there to go check wouldn't get a quick response compared to what's on a closed season, non-hunting day.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So just to finish, we've developed a lot of cases through hunters who do drive by and they notice something out of the ordinary, or it's just something that catches their eye. We encourage all hunters to give us a call, and then from there we can filter things out and see if a violation may be occurring or not. So we encourage anybody to give us a call. It's like our partners in the police department.
I have a question. Public lands are.
Can we get closer?
What are the definition of public lands?
The Department of Land and Natural Resources, DOCARE, I'm with the Division of Conservation and Resources Enforcement. So we're the law enforcement agency for the Department of Land and Natural Resources. So the lands that we are authorized to patrol and work hand in hand, the other divisions would be DOFA lands, natural reserve areas, forest reserve areas, watershed areas, those types of properties within DOFA, as well as your state division of land management, water.
If these constitute public land, what constitutes trespassing?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask who's speaking? Is this a member of the public?
Can you repeat your question?
What constitutes trespassing of a person on public land?
Mr. Chairman, we're getting kind of out of order at this point, and we have 27 people here who want to testify.
Yeah, let's go.
But can I have an answer? If a person walks into public land, is that trespassing?
Teresa, come back with that question when we open up for public testimony.
Okay, so
I think we're going to be done here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for? No. All right, I want to thank the officers, Captain Durian, Officer Passmore, and Lieutenant for joining us this evening. I really appreciate it. You've answered several of my questions for sure. And James Weller, thank you also for helping us this evening. You have opened up other questions that I think that a couple of us will be getting back to you on there as well. We have two other things. We have public testimony, and I don't know how many people we have there that will be testifying on our agenda items this evening. If they do have agenda items, we like to keep it 27 of you. We like to keep it short. In deference to others that are there for testimony, and we like to keep it short. It's 8:30 right now. Well, we would be close. As far as the minutes go, can we defer the minutes until our next meeting? Everybody here okay with that?
I make a motion.
Anybody opposed? Okay, so we'll defer the minutes until next meeting. Okay, anybody who has testimony, keep it short, by your full name, what agenda item that you're testifying on, and keep it in order. So we'll just open up for testimony at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I would request that since we have so many people here and we don't have air, that we start with Hilo.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. First testifier would be Polycapo Deadman. Speaking on, if you can come forward and identify what item number you're talking about. What agenda item?
Dave Penn. Polycapo Deadman. Where I got a look at you guys. I wanted to talk to Dave Penn about this whole access issues about accessing to forestry lands. What about the forestry land? How do you address to eradicate resources in forestry lands? Because you deal with the state, and it's no sense doing access if you got nothing to go on any trail. So I was just wondering what you protection of the resources and the native gander resource protection of these practices.
Okay, Polycapo, can I interject here for a second? That is basically a question that you should actually bring to the commission as an agenda item itself, so we can get the proper people to address that at a meeting. We're talking about access, well, you're talking about protection. And it would be better to have that as an agenda item separately. And, talk to us tomorrow, give me a call. We'll try and get it on the next agenda, which is going to be on the 15th, I believe, of next month.
So can I get a confirmation on being on the agenda on the issues I want to deal with? Because the commission members and the guest speakers, I think we're supposed to only talk about the agenda item, but I like to discuss things with DoCare and the police department.
Yep.
That's more or less on treatment about how we act as Native people here. So I think that's something I want to dialogue with or ask questions to, and it's not an agenda item. So how do I get?
Agenda item for tonight, but that question can be given to us as an agenda item. You may have specific questions, the police department or the DoCare directly, actually, which you should address personally.
At this meeting right now?
No. It's not on the agenda.
Not in our meeting, you're not.
Okay. So then.
You can ask, they're on the agenda.
Procedurally, if a board member wants to forward any testimonies, any testifier's question, the board member can do it. But it's not a time for testifiers to go ask questions directly to any of the presenters.
Get testimony on.
No, they're making on the agenda,
yeah.
Right? I gotta get on your agenda to address these, but will you have the same invites at this next meeting that can address the questions I'd like to ask?
Well, you can come directly to any police station and ask your questions. We're there 24 hours a day. If you got a question for the police department, please just come to the police department and ask, or call the 935-3311 number.
I represent an organization. I'd rather do it in the public. I'm a taxpayer, so I expect treatment where my tax dollars go to everybody at this government level. So I'd like to dialogue in public about the situation. So I think like anything else, you get things addressed when you're in front of people. This is what you want to talk about. So being private doesn't really address the concerns that I have.
So that's your
thank you though, for the offer.
Mr. Devin, that's your request to the chairman that be put on a future agenda.
Yeah, and to talk about forestry with the two same people that I see here tonight, if they're going to be invited back.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Devin?
Thank you.
No, I don't want to cut you off, but the next testifier is Terry Napiaki.
Okay, I guess I have to go and verify whether the question I'm going to ask, they're discussing access to Clinton Forestry Reserve. Can I ask a question in that paragraph?
That would be you.
Yeah.
In that.
Well, in this item.
Oh, you want to speak on to that item?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
All right.
Answer your question. If I can answer it, sure.
But I think he was talking about the Clinton fencing to Mr. Pan. So I'm going to be doing the same thing.
No, that's okay. Any member of the public who wants to testify, even if somebody else raised the issue before, you can still testify to that issue again too.
Okay, I'm going to specifically talk about this item issue that we have in the Clinton Forest Reserve access, and with Jordan Jukio and his movement. He's no longer here, right? Am I right? Movement to have access with an access road. I've never seen any testimony to public about the access they have in the private road that Jordan Jukio has been working on, and with Olson's access, and the damage it could bring to the forest with the access. And the lawsuit, because we had a fencing lawsuit with Cotton Forest Reserve, and we were never told about the access trail that they were, or road that they were putting in there, and that's what we're asking. I mean, are they still fencing with and having access even with our litigation suit?
So,
Mr. Chairman, do you want to entertain that question and have it answered by Lisa?
If Lisa can answer that question, that would be.
okay, as part of the management plan for the entire forest reserve, I know that access was discussed, and Steve may be able to chime in as well. So in the discussion, I think when you heard David say fencing, it was in reference to fencing that access corridor through the Olson Trust. Is that correct, David?
Yeah, it's fencing to keep basically animals from moving across the boundary between state land and the private land, to keep the cows out of the forest and the pigs out of the pasture, and also to discourage the hunters from going onto the private land and staying in the public land on the forest reserve side.
So this project is
The
a
other people who are going up there.
very different location than the other fencing that you're, I think, referencing.
What the fencing is doing is
My understanding is that most of the route that we're taking is basically existing roads that were put in by the plantation and that people generally had access to when the plantation was in control of the whole area. But since things have gotten broken up, and the pastures have gone in on both the state leases and on the private land, that it's a different situation. So we're in a way trying to recreate that existed before, where there was more freedom to move along the bottom of the forest reserve boundary there.
Okay, my question in that light is, you're going through private property to fence with state monies, am I correct?
Let's see.
Why isn't the private owner paying for the fencing, and why are we and our taxpayers paying for that fencing?
I think what the view was is that this was a public benefit by negotiating an agreement with a private landowner for additional access to a spot that was challenging and would have been trespass for folks to get to the forest. And so the concept was, with the public benefit, that it's acceptable to use public funds to try and garner access for the public to that forest reserve.
And the public to do what, hunting?
Hunting, gathering, hiking,
Even though
watching.
there's no pigs in there to hunt?
The whole outdoor section of the forest reserve is got, there's.
Okay, answer that one,
Yeah.
Magistrate.
Yes, I'd like you to answer that.
I know, probably you familiar. As from the 56 Gulch Road, Forest Line, straight across to Waibara from Mountain House, come out to Makino, off Forest. See, what OC did was Forest Line here, put his fence here. So you know that road that used to come out to Waibara to Makino, he took that road. So Center Road, Mountain House, main Mountain House Road. You come down, you turn around, you go back out. 56 no can go because he blocked all that. There's a fence there like this. So what was requested was this fence and leave that road open for us. So you can come from Aquino, go up Mountain House, come down Mountain House Center Road or Main Road, come across, go across to Waibara, and come up Makino Junction.
How come all the roads wasn't grandfathered in?
That's why I was grumbling about this. So that's why all this litigation gotta go through audits. That we could have solved this from day one. That made sure. My question was, why did the landowner think he had ownership right up to a forest reserve? Was my question.
Well, he's part of the litigation suit. I read the whole entire litigation on Ka'u Forest Reserve plan.
So what's the question?
You're partnershiping with Nature Conservancy, you're partnershiping with private owners, and they have all the say for that Ka'u fencing. And that's what I'm saying. So you have people that are making decisions for public that are private owners. And I just don't see the justice in that. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Next testifier is Bernie Gillis. Okay, thank you. Next one on the list is James Weller, but I don't think you want to testify. Lisa Hadaway, I don't think you want to testify. Dwayne Yoshina, I don't think so. Glenn Hisashima? Glenn, he was here. Okay, not here. Okay, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna strangle somebody's name. R. Holzinger? Hofflinger, okay, Hofflinger.
He was here.
Richard Hofflinger? Not here. Dustin Warmer?
Right up. Okay, this question is for Officer Weller. You corrected Kalani earlier in an earlier conversation that a hunter is someone who hunts legally, and a poacher is the opposite of that. Can you explain to me and the rest of the guys here what exactly you mean by that? Because when I spoke to you a few months back regarding checking hunting licenses at tree planting opening day at the gate, your response to me was no, you're not gonna check because you don't want to discourage anybody from hunting. Because if nobody hunts, you told me it could result in federal eradication. So, and also you added to that, but you will be in there on that opening day, and if you catch anybody coming out with meat that doesn't have a license, you're gonna cite them. So, does this mean you are promoting poaching to make a bust, or that you don't actually stand by your statement that you made to Kalani that a hunter is?
Yes, me.
Hold on. Mr. Chairman, do you want to entertain that question? Because it's a question directly to the officer. So,
But I don't.
But it's regarding poaching and poaching.
yes, this is for statements, not for really for questions, unless the chairman entertains them. Mr. Chairman.
Well, that's a question. I don't. If the bill care officer is willing to address this, it's fine.
Why is he even having this?
You asked me if we would be in there. Yeah? That way we wouldn't be in there. Exactly.
No,
Because the gates are locked. There's no reason for an officer to be in there waiting for you to walk in.
No, not in there. I asked if you guys would be checking licenses at the gate. There's people lined up at the gate before the opening day, and I specifically asked you if you're gonna be there to check if anybody is hunting illegally.
we work there, and there's no reason for us to be there.
Right. And
That's
you know,
why
you
you
told
want
me that
that.
you're not gonna be there to check, but you also told me that you guys will be in there throughout the day to make the check.
In other words, we'll be there when you least expect us. We
Right.
weren't gonna tell you what time the officers would be there, or what time we planned them.
Mhm. So
It's
why not?
something
Why
we
not?
don't share.
My question to you is, why not stop it right there at the gate, where you can tell these guys to, you know what, you guys don't have a license here, you guys don't have a hunting license, you guys don't belong hunting. This is a public hunting area for someone who has a license, a legal hunter, right? Not a poacher. So anybody in there without a license is considered a poacher at that gate, waiting to go hunting.
Correct.
Right. So my question to you is, why not stop it right there at the source? Or
We felt that it wasn't a need to stop people before they enter. It's a one-way in, well, two ways in, two ways out. So we can wait out at both ends. I have 7 officers that cover from Lapoehoe to Ka'u, Manikia, Manalo, Kuna. So they're all spread out. I don't have enough officers to make sure that we have officers there from the time hunting begins to when it comes start, or even later. I don't have enough officers. That's one of the reasons why I didn't give you an exact time when he would be there.
Okay, thank you. Oh.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm done.
And also, as you testify, please address the chair, also with your name clearly,
Okay,
and what agenda item you're addressing.
Mr. Chairman, the next testifier is Stephen Arujo.
Yeah.
Mr. Arujo has not stayed. Next testifier is Carrie Marks.
Hello, hi everybody. I have a general comment on the entire agenda, and it's entirely missing from the Laserfish system. I also have a comment on the entire support of all of the commissions. This is not the only commission to suffer because the room was too small and too hot, and the equipment didn't work. So the meeting started late, and people left and got disenfranchised. Other than the bulletin board outside this building for anybody to check on. So, that is all. Mahalo.
Thank you, Carrie. Next one is Richard Onishi. Next one is Steve Bergfeld.
No, I thought I was just signing in.
Okay. Next one is Gary Toma. Next one is Stan Botello.
Yes, my name is Stan Botello. I'm a rancher down in the Waco area, and I got a lot of problems with poachers, and some of them call themselves hunters, but catching them is a real problem. You know, you gotta just about sleep out there for catch them, and when you get caught, just a slap on the wrist and they're out and they're right back doing it again. So my question to the board is, if there's any way that we could raise the fees on them, should they get caught? Or even if the hunters see some other poachers around there, please report them to the police officers and help the rancher out, because in this day and time, sometimes I feel like I'm going backwards instead of going forward, raising cows. And I could do some help. Any kind of help. And that's why I'm here.
Thank you. No, that is something we will address, actually.
Thanks, Stan.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Ryan Kohatsu.
Yeah, this is Ryan, Tokyo Officer Willett. Thank you for coming here. And, I appreciate what Tokyo has done with their limited funding. Although you guys get more officers, sometimes you don't get a budget with those officers. So I appreciate what you're trying to do here. But what I was getting at, my question, last question, the comment would be, based on the Pittman Robertson projects out there, there's only a few places that are designated for game production, mammal game production, and not this island. Maybe everybody else doesn't study it, but there's only really two places, Pool off one of those, I don't know the other one. And really everywhere else is slated for, if you could eradicate it tomorrow, you would probably do that if you had the population. So we have these two places that are for game. Do some kind of management there. I was hoping that there would be some kind of emphasis on what. So I just was wondering, it's been going on for years, and everyone knows it. You see it on the internet, you see it on pictures, it's pretty blatant. What does it take to deter? Well, I think deterrent would be most important. Would be maybe reporting the violation to people and stuff. I mean, they do it on the mainland. They put these big things up with who violated what and things that. Maybe it's not as much for Tokyo now, but that might be something. Still.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to have Officer Weller entertain that question?
The production.
So we, with the manpower that we have on the east side, we, we plan our patrols. So you may not see us up to the mountain maybe for a week, or you might see us every day. We try and roll. Take things around. But the crew that I have, I think we're doing the best we can.
Oh, I think it's the one.
we need to reassess those and correct them and correctly fence it. What's your take on that, sir?
I think that we shouldn't rule anything out if we take a reasonable, scientific, cultural, whatever factors we have to consider, and look at all the lands that are available and make the decision based on the best information that we have. But yeah, I wouldn't rule that out, but that's not the focus right now. That's a big effort to go in and do all of that reassessment work, and I don't think that that's something that we're necessarily geared up for at the moment.
Mr. Penn, that land that you guys will be looking for more is going to take a lot of money to fence and eradicate. The lands that are there, when they get correctly fenced, we got 49 states, Hawaii being the 50th state, never having a game management plan, is the perfect solution and being able to save what we're looking here to save.
Sounds like Lisa wanted to weigh in on that.
I don't know if you're referencing additional acquisitions. David's position is access and acquisition.
Yes.
And in certain circumstances, because we're dealing across the state, there's acquisition opportunity, but no surface that may provide easy access for recreation, like ATVs, mountain biking, and perhaps even hunting. So I think we, things surface, you have a willing seller. For example, the Dole lands on Oahu, there's some opportunities there.
The only problem I have with that, Lisa, is when we sat down with you guys in September and we seen your guys' master plan for the Watershed Initiative program. When money is available, you guys take every forest in the state of Hawaii for fencing and eradication. That Mr. Eiley himself, when we sat in the meeting, that was his answer to us. 5% goes now. We lose 4,800 acres from Kohala to Waipio now. We're losing that now. Now that that watershed bill has been proven to be false, it's being restructured. They're going to call it the Aloha Challenge, no longer going to call it the Rainfall of the Forest Program, and they're restructuring. But what happens, to the lands that have already been taken? We're not getting anything reassessed, re-fenced, have a game management plan in place where the animal and the forest and we coexist. There's nothing happening here. I know. I understand. But we need to get this addressed. This is the bottom line. This stops a lot of these things that we're sitting here doing, guys. This man over here is sitting, he doesn't have money for members, but they can write grants and get millions of dollars to put up fences. He can't, you got policemen sitting out the door. They could use 100 more cops on the streets to stop these kids and stuff. I just got hired to take care of a ranch. I have a letter that I'm going to file with the police department with my name, social security number, phone number. It gives me authorization to stop the hunter coming in or to stop them there to call 911, where I'm protected, the landowner's protected. I get DNR involved, I get Steve involved. I just brought an issue to Steve about 15 3/4. A guy's playing owner over there. They just had a fist fight at the gate where they beat up an old man. The landowner at the house sitting there. We got a lot of problems here. But this watershed bill kills us. It totally kills us. There's no restructuring that can be done until we get back into these areas, have a game management plan, and reassess it. We'll save millions of taxpayers' dollars. That man sitting over there is getting his cattle nailed because there's no access to the forest. There's no animals there to hunt. He can remember. We'll tell your family, they all hunt for years. They know what the forest used to be. There's no game management plan, guys. These guys are going to go and take the easiest way. We got a lot of drugs on the street. These kids is up. Cowboys all night long. Days on end. Like he said, he got to sleep in his pasture. We'll stop.
Hey, I want to move on and keep it to the agenda. We have other people who want to testify.
Okay. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin.
Yeah.
Next testifier is Ronald Fujiyoshi.
My name is Ronald Fujiyoshi. I'm going to testify on unfinished business
my wife, who's here with me, wrote a letter to